The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Mondays here. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Hope you're all right. Hope you're shaking the cobwebs off, or they're all off by now. With we've never really gotten into this. Should today be a holiday or not? It's kind of a holiday for us because we get to talk one last day about football and. What a classic it turned into with Super Bowl 58. Plenty of thoughts there. A lot of Chiefs lovers, a lot of Chiefs haters to my left.
No comment?
No comment, as Elijah's going to keep his head down today.
As the resident Chiefs hater, I will
and
be
your
impartial today.
Your birthright is okay as such as being a Denver guy.
I promise that I will put professionalism over personal feelings today.
I'll believe it
for the most part.
mix in some of the personal toughness there. Connor, you doing all right? Everybody get fat and full last night? Did everyone pig out appropriately?
Yes, very, very much so. I was very impressed with my college friend group's spread because, we're all college students. We're all cheap when it comes
Top
to...
ramen?
Zero ramen, wow. Actually. We had... taco dip, which I made, which was awesome. I'm not biased.
Of course it was.
One of my friends made mac and cheese, homemade, which was great. We had buffalo chicken quesadillas as well.
Ooh.
Like we had some good stuff going on.
Buffalo chicken quesadillas, that's innovative.
They were really good.
See, I made the buffalo chicken dip yesterday, and it turned out fantastic. But buffalo chicken quesadillas is something I've never even thought of making.
We echoing. Brandon is giving us an audio what the hell in the stream. We'll do our first roll call here coming up here in a little bit. But a lot to get into aside from the food choices. We want to hear what you ate on Super Bowl Sunday. Do so in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. Give us a follow there at HVarsity Radio. Can find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence, at Connor. His Twitter is at C_Clark_27, at Schmidt_radio for me, Chris Schmidt. So we'll dive into the Super Bowl. Plenty of thoughts as we hear from Nebraska's quarterback, Coach Glenn Thomas. He met the media today. How much smoke/worry did you absorb this weekend as a Nebraska fan with UCLA and Tony White? The coast is clear, thankfully, as the Bruins hired Deshaun Foster. And Nebraska basketball, the women were excellent. They were incredible. It was such a scene. And we'll get there before we hit Super Bowl. And just a couple of thoughts, and this video and footage captured on the Hail Varsity social media channel of Coach Amy Williams, kind of around mid-court. And Elijah, you and I had a chance to do the Southwest girls Saturday night with Kennedy, her daughter, just a stud ball player for Southwest, as they beat number 3 in the state, North Star. And to see her daughter jump into her mom's arms at mid-court, that footage captured with tears in each other's eyes, just the joy of the moment, taking down number 2, a family affair, that was special. It was special to hear Matt Coatney's call and joy. It was special to see all the Nebraska fans get there on the court and show up in droves, and all the folks that came out to see the show that is Caitlin Clark put on a great performance, except in the fourth quarter when Nebraska locked her down, held her to 0 for 6, went box in 1, and the Huskers crawled back from 14 down. It was absolutely magic. The game itself, national audience, Holly Rowe was there, Fox National was there, the who's who covering sports of that magnitude there to see Caitlin maybe break the record. But what are we talking about is, yes, a big win for Nebraska. Yes, the joy of another court storming. I mean, it led all sports centers. As I was driving up and back from Omaha, I was listening to our friends at 590. and they had Sports Center leading into Super Bowl coverage, and I mean that led. That was, I shouldn't say led, it was Super Bowl and then bang. Did Caitlin get the record? No. Nebraska, monster comeback. And, Nebraska was front and center. It was really a cool moment for Nebraska athletics yet again. But you go to the social media side of things, and two things dominated social media aside from Taylor Swift yesterday. It was the Super Bowl, and at least locally here, it was Iowa's coach Lisa Bluter losing her absolute mind. And we can arm wrestle this topic. Who had a worse meltdown yesterday? Was it Iowa's coach, or was it Travis Kelce trying to put Big Red in a body cast in the first quarter? That's a fair question. But here is Lisa Bluter interrupting Alexis Markowski, trying to speak lovingly about her father and our dear friend Andy Markowski.
I have a lot of special moments with my dad. We got a flight to catch. I won several state championships.
This is not Big Ten protocol. Just start right. I know. They play music while you shoot free throws.
I don't know what's worse, playing music while you shoot free throws or delaying your flight. You want to talk about heat of the moment, needing to be better, frustrated that you blew a 14-point lead, frustrated you lost to Nebraska. I think Markowski, I think I saw this tweet, and Andy may have said it on Hurrdat Sports this morning. He joined Damon and Ravi. Nebraska had been 0-7 for, this core group, this good group that Amy Williams has had been, and everyone's had a tough time beating Iowa during the Clark era. But, man, for the head coach to act like a 2-year-old, and listen, I wasn't there. I didn't cover that event yesterday, but, man, it sounds like it was just kind of pandemonium after the game, and both teams kind of took their time, and Nebraska was ready first. Typically, the visiting team's head coach, and if a player or two is available, they're up first for the post game. But I don't think it was anything intentional by Nebraska. Nebraska has always done and always will run top-notch, events. They just do. They just do from a media standpoint. They're the standard for sports information, and for that to be caught and interrupt the press conference and trying to storm in, this is what I'm gathering. Awful look. And for her, we got a plane to, just freaking out. And I know. Listen, they're college students. They're on a timeline. You got to get them back to Iowa City. I understand all that, but what this sounded like to me was just raw emotion of being PO'd. You lost to Nebraska. You lost a 14-point lead, and you weren't in the mood for any no.
The straw that breaks the camel's back. If you've all had a bad day where a minor inconvenience comes up,
and someone's the target to take it out on.
Yes, that's what this feels like. So my reaction, for the most part. Wah, wah. Like, okay, they were in the media room when you wanted to be in the media room. This is not a big deal. Like, they took a long time on the court, Nebraska did. They had their celebration in the locker room. They show up to the media room and, nobody's here.
How are you not ready?
What?
Yeah, nobody's here. I guess we're ready to go then. We're going to go take the stage.
Also,
wah, wah, deal with it.
They're not going to miss their flight.
They're going to wait for you.
Yeah,
you think?
What do you think they're going to do? Leave Iowa and Lincoln? Leave the head coach in Lincoln? No.
Well, one of the things
that's not going to happen
with these teams is they're not it's not all football where everyone's flying private. And I don't actually know the situation with Iowa's plane, whether they're flying public or whether they're flying private.
I'm half surprised you're flying from Iowa City to Lincoln, to be honest.
I would highly doubt they're flying commercial.
Really?
Yeah.
Especially if
highly.
I would think so too. That short a flight.
And the player that you have on your roster.
Sure.
That's true.
You're not sticking that team on a commercial
State Farm's going to pick that tab up.
Come on. They are not flying commercial. There's no way. I'd be really surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were flying commercial. But I don't actually know the
489-1240.
Does Iowa fly commercial? How cheap is the University of Iowa Athletic Department? Give us a call.
They're not. They don't have to be with Clark, but I just thought that was awful. And I'm going to have to side with the Iowa coach's outburst being less offensive to me than Travis Kelce.
Really?
I think Kelce is, as much as he's dominated the playoffs, as well as he's performed.
Oh, right on cue. We have a phone call.
Okay. I think him bumping Big Red and screaming at his coach, I still can't get used to that.
If Mahomes does it, is there this reaction?
Well, Mahomes hasn't.
Mahomes
hasn't bumped his coach and like pretty much about 4 gallons of saliva with just the forcefulness of the put me in the bleeping game. His motive isn't wrong for wanting to be a difference maker in Super Bowl 58. I understand it. And Coach Reid is calm, cool, collected, and not angry about it. Like he'll have his talking to, the apologies were exchanged between Kelce and Big Red. Totally get it. But in that moment, man, that would derail a lot of teams from bad to worse where you're scuffling. They were strong enough to withstand that. Patrick Mahomes was incredible, and the old mobile quarterback comes back to strike, right, where Mahomes gets enough yardage on the scramble to really kind of spark the offense and then make his plays. But I thought Kelce losing it on Big Red like that and then bumping him almost knocked down a 300-plus guy.
Well, my thing is this is different at the high school level. This is different at the college level. I mean, Travis Kelce is a guy that has won you 2 Super Bowls and was not being utilized correctly to start that game. You can see the difference in his stats from the first half to the second half and how different the Chiefs' offense looked. Is the way he go about it, did it leave something to be desired? Yeah, but I think one of the issues is a lot of people don't look, or they kind of put their own personal sports experience, which is much lower than these guys ever have, into this moment. Like Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, they're still the coach-player relationship, but at the NFL level, it is more coworker than what you think of with a high school coach or a college coach kind of being the leader of men. And it's closer to coworkers.
No, you're absolutely right, but you still don't want to take a trip to go see who's the guy in the office, Toby. You don't want to go see Toby in HR because you screamed at a coworker.
I think the big thing, it was like...
It's about the moment, though.
It was 3-0. Like, that's the one thing I have a problem with. I'm like, dude, it's not like you're down 17 zip. Like, I get it's a Super Bowl. Emotions are running high. Clearly, that's the type of, like, it's a very back and forth relationship between Andy Reid and some of his players. I totally get that. Like, that's totally cool. They're going to have disagreements. I don't really have a problem with Travis Kelce and or Patrick Mahomes discussing their displeasure with what's happening. Yeah, maybe you don't make contact with them, but I don't really... It's not the end of the world for me that Travis Kelce's yelling at his head coach because
it wasn't a shove. It wasn't a takedown, but it was a check.
Yeah,
and that's where the physical part is.
Yeah,
yell and scream, fine, whether it's an inch away or 5 feet away, but the contact on top of it, it's like he was. You're looking at my gal. I mean, it was seek and destroy in a bar.
But I think if there's anyone on the Chiefs who has earned that right, it's Kelce along with Mahomes to really voice their frustration. Those two guys are
does
the
anyone
voice
ever
of the
have
team.
that right to go undress their coach? They're still an authority figure.
They're still an authority
Tom
figure,
Brady.
but I think it is different.
But him and Bill O'Brien would scream and yell and spike iPads, but they never got physical. Now there's 300-pound guys between them to keep it from going there. Oh, Billy O'Brien would have gouged out Tommy B's eyes.
But did anyone get mad at Tom Brady? I see these situations as almost identical. It's frustration on the sideline.
Bill O'Brien went to coach Penn State shortly thereafter.
Yeah, and we all blamed Bill O'Brien for being the issue within that offense. Like nobody blamed Tom Brady in that moment. I think Travis Kelce's kind of earned the right to voice his frustration. This comes from a Chiefs hater. I'd love to hate on the Chiefs in this moment and say, Travis, he's wrong. What a loser. It's the emotions are running high. It's the Super Bowl. It's one of the most important games these people ever play in their lifetime. And I think Travis is trying to, he's emotional. He's been playing in the game.
Be emotional. Don't make contact. Totally showing up your coach.
I think that's fair. I think that's a fair take.
I think if Travis could go back, he wouldn't.
They've apologized.
Make contact. They've apologized.
They're arm in arm. They're probably shotgunning beers right now.
Exactly.
There's no bad blood.
I think it's been overplayed.
Okay.
How big this situation is. As we just spent 5 minutes talking about it here.
The look was awful. It's water to the bridge because they won. But guess what? If they don't win in overtime, that's a monster talking point today. The wins curing all. is kind of important. Let's get to the roll call. Our starting 5 here in the stream. We say what's up to the first 5 listeners that hang out with us in the stream, and all the other folks that come in and are a part of the show here on Hail Varsity with the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Mike Corrigan checks in first, and love his quote from Gordie Howe: "All hockey players are bilingual. They know English and profanity." Brian Snitley in second. Brandon Smith. What's up, Brandon? Jeff Snitley. So both members of the Boulder Treaty Speedy.
What?
The Boulder Peace Treaty.
You said Tree Speedy.
Are in. Brennan checks in from the Black Hills. Chuck in at 6. Jeff 7. Andrew in at 8. And the artist formerly known as KG Kids for Life in at 9. We'll take more of your comments. Anonymous is in. Echoes fixed. Give us, okay, yes, much better. Apparently about 15 minutes ago, the echoes got fixed. Thank you. KG Kids for Life. Big Ten Protocol was an adult movie from 1984. Thank you for that, KG Kids for Life. Starring who?
We're not going there. Let's not go there. Stick to sports.
Elijah votes for stick to sports on a Monday. All right, let's talk some more. Glenn Thomas audio on the way. Tony White thoughts. More on the Super Bowl. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now back to Hail Varsity Radio.
489-1240, 489-1240, or 800-825-5865. Can email Chris at hailvarsity.com or jump in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube, subscribe to it. Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, Chris Schmidt. So we have some comments there on the Kelce and Reid interaction. And this was pretty funny by Danny. Danny chimes in here on the stream. Iowa sports took so many hits with losses and memes over the past week that I'm truly concerned about their mental stability.
They were talking about Iowa football on the Nickelodeon broadcast last night, apparently.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Noah Eagle said in Iowa they call punting winning.
In the first half.
There's T-shirts. Vic from Denver weighs in. Dang, Schmitty, a little bump and you're up in arms. Guy was...
supposed to say pissed, I think.
Yeah, I hope. Misspell was ticked and was sounding off. I guess he should have sent him some flowers and a note. No, it's a little... It's more than a bump to move Andy Reid.
But it wasn't malicious. That's the best way. And
it's also Travis Kelce bumping him.
I realized that word, yeah. Travis Kelce's a large guy playing a physical game. There was no maliciousness to the contact. If he goes up there and two-hand shoves Andy Reid, completely different. It wasn't malicious. He was trying to show him that he was upset.
Let's pray they're not down 17-0 in next year's Super Bowl then.
Then it might get. If it gets malicious, I'll be the first person to say that's inappropriate, that's wrong. Let's get Travis Kelce out of the league.
I think it falls
retirement.
into the category of inappropriate.
Pushing the limits.
Yeah, on most staffs, in most areas.
The
Andy Reid's the difference here. He can handle it. He has handled it.
The behavior that is expected, I think, from NFL players is different than what's expected at your office job or your radio job or whatever. And I think in that moment, you have to, if it happens in a preseason game, if that exact moment happens in a preseason game, as I said earlier, I'm going to be the first person to say that is wrong. It's messed up. Travis Kelce is completely in the wrong here. It wasn't malicious contact. I don't think he meant to bump into Andy Reid like that. He's just emotional. And I don't fault him for being emotional in one of the biggest games that you'll ever play in your life.
Be emotional. Voice your displeasure. Spike another helmet.
The rebuttal to that, though, is that it's not like this is the first time he's ever been playing in a Super Bowl. Like, there is an element to acting like you've been there before, which he has.
Or being down.
But for all you know, this could be the last time you're ever playing in a Super Bowl.
That is true. But I'm just saying, like, it's not like this is his one and only shot to get a ring, right? Like, he's been there before. Maybe act like it a little bit more. I think both of you bring up very valid points. Like, I'm kind of in the middle here. But, again, it's not like this is the first time Travis Kelce's ever sniffed a championship game.
Larry has info on the Iowa flight home. about Coach Lisa's plane to catch. The flight is never delayed. It sits in the airport on the south side of the tarmac. Uh-huh. Thank you, Larry, for that clarification. Let's go to the Super Bowl here. And
well, the bigger talking point that I think we should be hitting today, which it's been hit a decent amount. Travis Kelce, obviously being Taylor Swift's boyfriend, gonna get some headlines. But Kyle Shanahan, that second half, man, like I think I feel for 49ers fans because Kyle Shanahan did not put his team in a position to win that game in multiple ways, from kind of abandoning the run in the third quarter, taking the ball first in overtime. Like,
that was
there is a lot of blame that falls on Kyle Shanahan's feet, especially given his history, blowing 28-3.
0-3 with 10-plus point leads.
Yeah, being outscored. I think the number across his 3 Super Bowls is 72-28 following halftime.
No good. And we'll talk with Jay Moore in hour 2, former NFLer. Listen, I thought they went back to McCaffrey in the second half to get in better position, and I thought they weren't afraid with Purdy letting it fly.
I think you should have been a little more afraid, though.
But Kansas City just did what they do. They hung around, and then they capitalized. It was little things that turned into big things. I mean, Kansas City, they turned the ball over. They're vulnerable. Look at the Raider loss at home. That was like rock bottom for them. And what happened? They had a slew of turnovers that day. San Fran forced some turnovers. They forced the turnover going in to go up 7-3. Kansas City turned away. They also got to pick the opening drive of the third quarter. That a lot of times zaps your momentum. That third quarter drive is so important, as Kansas City was going to try and tie the thing. They got the field goal before the half, the middle 8, as Coach Rule likes to talk about, and a lot of coaches do. So the Niners defense and their pass rush and Bosa and Chase were good. Randy had some good moments for the 49ers.
But unfortunately for the 49ers, in the crucial moments, their pass rush went away. Fourth quarter, overtime, almost non-existent.
Well, the quarterback run game was a difference.
Quarterback run game is different, but I still look at Shanahan. How in a game where you have the lead for most of it, does Brock Purdy have 38 passing attempts? Like, McCaffrey got 22 attempts. That's a solid number, but you had the lead most of the way.
Did he have 10 catches, too? Or 8? He had 8 receptions. So he had 30 touches.
He had 8 receptions plus 22 carries, 30 touches. That's a good number. Your second leading rusher on the day was Brock Purdy. I know Debo's been dealing with an injury through most of the postseason.
George Kittle was also non-existent, too, for most of that
KC's
game.
back seven's money. They're so good.
They are, but that's why I'm concerned with Brock Purdy having 38 passing attempts in a game that you're leading.
No, I don't disagree. But he is. This is not an excuse. He is what he is. He still wants to throw the football. He doesn't. Maybe in these past failures where you lost to the Niners back in 19, up double digits, you're up 28-3 on the Patriots. Maybe he was afraid to play not to lose, and he wasn't going to change his offense and just keep doing what you're doing. I'm trying to give the guy an out, but 0-3 is bad.
0-3
They're great roster, great drafting, wonderful development. I mean, the Jennings kid's a 7th-round pick. They do well if they bring you into San Francisco. This is just tough to get over.
Another devil's advocate take here for defending Shanahan, and I said this to Elijah earlier before we got on, is all 3 of these losses, when it's all said and done, could potentially come to the top 2 quarterbacks to ever play the game. And I know that's not taking away, he struggled.
Consider
coaching,
the circumstance.
But consider the competition that he's going up against too. That's pretty remarkable to think about. The twice against Patrick Mahomes, and obviously the 28-3 blown lead against Brady.
I would choose to look at it that way if I'm management. Well, it's anywhere else.
If I'm a Niner fan, well, actually, that's not true.
We'd be upset, but it was to Mahomes and it was to Brady.
On the other side, I think one thing can be the nail in the coffin for Shanahan. It would have been nice to have 4th and goal from the 5 in overtime, knowing exactly what you needed, having the ball second.
Details?
Little details like that, knowing the right strategy to employ in the overtime of Super Bowl is to take, now with the new rules, I should say, where both teams are guaranteed a possession no matter what happens, the right move 10 times out of 10 times is to take the ball second. So if you have the ball, 4th and 3 from midfield, it's not decision time.
Know what you got to do.
It's not decision time. It's easy. Or 4th and goal from the 5. Oh, we're down by 3. Let's take the points. Or 4th and goal from the 5. Patrick Mahomes just went and scored a touchdown. We need a touchdown. It makes things easy for you. That is the biggest nail in the coffin to Kyle Shanahan and his late game management. I can maybe excuse away the other things with Brock Purdy, all his attempts, going away from the run game for about half of the third quarter. I can't excuse that decision at the end. And that, when combined with Kyle Shanahan's other late game strategies, makes me put this loss on Kyle Shanahan.
Maybe he should play from behind more often, considering the first 2 playoff games. I mean, that play style certainly seems to work out well.
Romo was chirping all second half about got to run the football, and guys just sometimes, and I don't know if this is Shanahan's case or not, but you got to keep flexing that big brain. Here's my playbook. Here's my creativity. Here's how smart I am. And sometimes ego gets in the way. And I don't know if that was last night or he just was in some weird headspace of what to do, knowing that they'd coughed up 2 10-point leads under his watch before.
But it's a trend now at this point. It's a
Beyond.
trend. Like, I think Kyle Shanahan is a great coach, one of the best in the NFL. But that trend of blowing Super Bowls late is a reputation that's going to stick with you. It's something that's going to stick with me. If the 49ers are ever in the Super Bowl again, you better believe I'm taking the opponent second half line. I'm going to go down to the sportsbook, live bet at halftime. Just the second half, I have no confidence in Kyle Shanahan. It's become a trend, and I don't think it's at the point where 49ers fans or management are ready to say, you know what, this guy can't get it done in the big moment. But it's in the back of my mind. That you know what? Once this guy gets to a Super Bowl, he makes boneheaded decisions from the sideline. That's what I think Kyle Shanahan is right now. And I think that's a reputation that's going to stick with you. I think he's good enough to go get a Super Bowl victory. I think he's had good enough teams to have a Super Bowl victory by now. But the simple fact of the matter is he hasn't gotten that Super Bowl done, and it's because of his own coaching mistakes.
It pains me that I lost to Matt Nagy.
Let's flip this around for a moment and get on to Mahomes and his greatness and just the feel he has in the moment, in the big games, the ice water, how calm and cool he is, just the perfect hand and glove him and Reid have been, and just the plays he makes. And I go back to using his feet with the zone read he ripped off for 22 yards, keeping the ball in his hands on that 3rd and short. And then on the 4th and 1, the run pass option, you want that in your offense. And I know we've talked about mobile versus pocket quarterbacks, but it just reiterates you want that thrower first, but a guy that isn't a statue. I always try and relate things to Nebraska football with whatever the quarterback is going to be here, what we think the quarterback's going to be for the next few years, and what the quarterback needs to be able to do. And that's interesting to hear some of Glenn Thomas's comments, but you can't account for it. Now, the Niners tried to do their best with the rush lane integrity. All that said, everyone's in coverage. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, he pulls it down and takes off, and there's no one home to try and defend him, and that's just deadly for any defense. And it's such a X factor.
And that, to me, quietly was the difference with the Chiefs' offense second half. We talked about Kelce getting him more involved. That's a part of it. But another huge part is the fact that the 49ers pass rush was a lot more dangerous in the first half than they were in the second half. They got the one pressure that led to the interception early in the third quarter. Other than that, whenever they got pressure, it was coverage pressure. It was a little bit different. That's a huge difference to me, is that the 49ers, and something I talked about last week, that to try to take Mahomes out of this game, you had to get after him. They did it well in the first half. In the second half, the Chiefs, credit to their offensive line, protected Mahomes a lot better. Mahomes, to his credit, knew when to pull it down and run a lot better. There's a couple designed runs in there that I think helped with that. That was the difference to me in the second half for the Chiefs offense. They got Kelce more involved. Mahomes was not as pressured, was not as flustered in the pocket, and you see what happens whenever he is able to be confident and comfortable in that pocket. He's going to pick you apart.
We'll have some more thoughts on the Super Bowl. We'll hear from Glenn Thomas, Nebraska's quarterback coach. And Mike chimes in, Mahomes keeping his cool even after the interception was key for sure, Mike. More of your comments in the stream. Can join us here on Hail Varsity. Hail Varsity YouTube channels where you go.
And huge from the Chiefs defense as well, getting a stop following that interception. 0 points on the board after you give up a turnover in your own end of the field.
Yeah, both teams really good with keeping points off turnovers.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. Let's try a phone call here as we're doing some creative technical work here. Who's with us?
Bruce.
Bruce, thanks for calling. Go for it.
Brother Chris, how you been, brother?
We are good, brother. How are you? Bruce, what do you know?
You know, hey, I'm living the dream. I'm a Donkey fan, too, as you well know. But, you know, hey, I like watching the Chiefs sometimes. They're fun, you know.
Do you like watching Elway hand that title off?
You know,
Sorry.
hard.
You looked right at Elijah when you said
Don't
that.
laugh. I had to leave the room. I left the room. I'm going to go start packing up my food. I'm getting out of here.
All the way
it's
with
John.
Elway is what I say.
It's
man.
John. John, why don't you hand us that Super Bowl trophy?
He had a smile on his face, but you could see his eyes were lifeless.
You know why? Because that's 17 scotches from quarter 1 to quarter 4.
Because Mahomes has overtaken him in Super Bowl championships.
Bruce, I will shut up. You go for it. Floor is yours.
Hey, man, I'll tell you, there's a big kind of, I think, a big elephant in the room, okay, that needs to be looked at a little bit because I hear everybody talk about, you know, Shanahan now has blown 2 10-point leads for Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Hey, the Ravens have done it. The Bills have done it, okay? The Bengals, they did it once or twice maybe, okay?
Bengals only team to beat KC.
The thing is that Reid and that whole Kansas City team, okay, they play asymmetrical football, okay? It's guerrilla warfare out there. It's sandbox football or sandlot football with those guys. It's really hard. And then you get somebody like Shanahan that comes in the big dance. I mean, the biggest game in the century, okay, for him to play this. He's trying to change things up because he's trying to, like, mix it up like Spurrier tried to do against Nebraska, okay, back in the day. And it's never going to work that way, okay? The only way that Kansas City's really gotten dominated is by a real good defense. You know, I mean, just a brutal type of defense that shuts them down completely. But as long as they keep playing this asymmetrical football where Mahomes is out there and he's dancing around and they do their little, you know, their little snow spin thing like they did a couple years ago and all this kind of crap, it's almost impossible to figure out what the heck they're going to do next play, you know. They just kind of go by the wing. It's like, well, let's try this.
You know,
nobody can defend it.
It looks that easy,
You know?
Bruce. Appreciate you dialing in. Thank you so much for the phone call and love hearing from you. You're not wrong. I mean, they are just impossible to defend. The thing is, and we go back to the Raiders, that's the rock bottom for KC. It was Chiefs turnovers, and it was Raiders run game. Raiders run game, Chiefs turnovers.
The Aiden O'Connell game.
Right, and you go back to Joey Heisman, Burrow's win in Arrowhead, right? What happened there? Cincinnati may have got 3 yards, but Cincinnati ran the damn football on first down, and they held on to the football. That's what you got to do. And to Elijah's point, I mean, you had a portion of that game where you went away from running the football. Easier said. I mean, Chiefs on paper, you're supposed to be able to run on them. And San Fran started off with that mid zone, and it looked great. And it looked really good, 6-7 yards a pop. And
First drive was awesome.
Right?
Until the fumble.
I did briefly here. I did love how Tony Romo, whenever they saw that mid zone, said, "I like to call that the mid zone." I said at home, I went, "Tony, everybody calls that the mid zone. What are you talking about?"
I just like the ace formation where you got an H-back, got a tight end, and then you just you cut it back, and there's a hole there. The back can pick, and you're running downhill because McCaffrey accelerates so well. Not too shabby. Level of concern, fellas, this weekend, as a few emails came in. We got done with the Saturday morning show about 9:30, and it felt like that things maybe were going to heat up for UCLA and Tony White. I know our dear friend Mitch Sherman put out a tweet that White was involved, and I think a Zoom interview took place. The Bruins have decided on Deshaun Foster. Nebraska fans exhaling a bit. But when push comes to shove, difficult timing to take a head job. Resources are a nightmare at UCLA. And it goes back to what Coach Rule has told guys that work for him. Yes, I want you to be a head coach, but make sure it is a good job. Make sure it's a right job. Make sure the resources are there. It was probably pretty tempting. And I don't know where Tony White ended up on the pecking order. They went with Foster, former Bruin, super excited, super passionate, great, but it's a joke what you're walking into the Big Ten with, and that's the 17th ranked recruiting class. It's a joke that as ballyhooed a coach as Chip Kelly is, him leaving a head job in a major conference to go work for his former quarterback at Delaware. It just seems like it's doomed for failure for UCLA.
Yeah, and as the weekend went on, you heard a little bit more smoke. The reports coming out today are, Foster was the top choice all the way through for UCLA.
Foster's the guy we got to say yes.
Yes. I don't believe that. I actually think Tony White was most likely the top candidate for UCLA. But you would have had to make a really compelling offer financially, more than double what Nebraska was going to be giving him next year whenever you factor in California's taxes.
Yeah.
And UCLA also.
Head coaches fine, assistant coaches are all screwed trying to live. Right?
There. Well, once you make that offer to Tony, that's what I was going to go with. Do you have enough money for a salary pool that's going to allow you to remain competitive? And then Tony White, does he strike you as the schmoozer that's going to go be able to deal with the NIL folks at UCLA and get them to
What
pony
is
up?
the NIL like?
Bad. By all accounts,
Yeah,
not good. I think UCLA would have had to come in and make Tony White an offer that he couldn't refuse, and I don't think they were able to do that, and I think they settled on Foster. That seems to me to be, as I read the tea leaves, what I heard this weekend, that seems to me to be what happened, is that UCLA really liked Tony White. UCLA was not able to make Tony White an offer that he couldn't refuse, and I think everybody gets what I'm saying whenever I say that. Come in and make an offer that nobody else was going to be able to make this cycle to Tony White. That's what it was going to take. UCLA was unable to do that. They had to settle on Foster. That's my read on the situation.
Tony, here's $9 million, and here's another 6.5 for your assistants.
That's the kind of offer that would have.
That's a yes for about everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think a part of the Foster hiring too, and you could say that they settled for him, and I've noticed that the word like UCLA passion has been thrown around a lot with him, and I think that's kind of maybe not in a head coach, but at least somebody on the coaching staff, it's going to have to be a part of this rebuild, if you want to call it that, at UCLA, because we talked about it last week.
Won 8 games last year, though.
I know, but at the same time, now you lose your head coach to an in-conference opponent. You're second on the pecking order to USC, most likely. You're in a pro sports town. There's so many other factors, I feel like, going against you that all of a sudden an 8-win team from a year ago is now in a spot where it's like, okay, well, where do we navigate in this hectic Los Angeles landscape while we're moving to a Midwest-dominated conference that has its, established powers? I think that's going to be really interesting to watch.
You know what this move strikes me as? You picked the guy that's passionate for UCLA. All right, you picked the guy that was easiest to get a yes out of because he cares about UCLA. And I think as you make this move into a new conference, if Foster works out, great. That's awesome. But if he doesn't work out, you give yourself some flexibility down there. You're not making a splash right now late in the cycle with fewer candidates than you'd like to have, having a full coaching carousel to evaluate guys. You know what? If this doesn't work out 2 or 3 years down the road, you can cut your losses more easily than if you were to pay the world to Tony White.
Well, and let's be honest, though. How buried are you in 3 years? Mm-hmm. That's the question. It's a really tough / maybe bad job, not brand, but bad job now. What's it turn into in 3 years if this guy you hire isn't even going to sniff half of what Chip was doing?
But let's not forget, you'll have Big Ten money that's rolling in.
That's fine, but it's still UCLA. Will they screw it up? That's the question. We'll wind down to hour 1 next.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So we put the Tony White situation to bed. We'll get Coach McBride's take on that. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, 10 minutes away. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, Monday edition, post-Super Bowl edition here on Hail Varsity Radio. Interesting comment. Glenn Thomas met the media today, and this is pretty telling. And you look at what Nebraska faced last year with 3 different quarterbacks. Glenn Thomas, too, dealt with 3 different quarterbacks in Pittsburgh, and he's got some grooming to do, cut 13, as we hear from Glenn Thomas today, his appearance for Nebraska.
Yeah, that's been good, bad, or indifferent. That's been consistent in my career. I don't know if that's just football in general. I mean, you think back to even our Baylor years, right? Like in 2017, we had 3 starters. Anu Solomon, Zach Smith, and then Charlie Brewer came in and ended up getting Freshman of the Year. When I was at UNLV, we ended up playing 3 guys, and Cameron Friel, ended up getting Freshman of the Year. So that's probably the one thing that I've been most proud of in my career as far as anybody that's on the field, the expectation and the standards to play. So I think that's how we'll approach it. It doesn't matter if you're the first on the depth chart or 5th. I mean, if you're in there, the expectation's to play at a high level.
Last thought here, cut 29 from Thomas on the pressure and it being a privilege and all the hype and hoopla surrounding Raiola and, quarterbacks in today's era.
It's like that everywhere. I mean, that's just the position, right? Pressure is a privilege. That's just what it is at playing that position. So I don't necessarily think you address it. We just, try to be the best we can possibly be. Try to put them in a position to be as successful as we possibly can, and all that other stuff is just part of being at that position.
Last quick hit from Glenn Thomas here. The traits cut 90 looks for in a quarterback. That'll be important.
That's a loaded question for sure, because I don't think there's just one thing. I think you have to be aware of what their strength is. If they're a passer, are they elite accuracy? If they're an athlete, do they have enough passing ability to get you through a passing situation? You know what I mean? So I think you have to identify what they're really good at, and then is that trait good enough to carry them through? Now, the good ones, like last night, for example, that they do a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? They're athletic enough to make plays off schedule, but they have enough arm talent to get you pass completed on 3rd and 8.
He just nailed it. I mean, you want the athlete, the playmaker, the speedster, the difference maker at quarterback to go get you that first down. But can that athlete consistently complete the pass, fellas, in a passing situation? Can he stay in the pocket? Can he roll out? Can he go off schedule? Can he do all of the above and get you 9 when you need 8? If you're calling a pass play.
Can he be a quarterback? Is the question.
Right.
Can he be a quarterback?
Simply put,
can he execute? Can he? I mean, you said it, or you heard him say it, almost echoing what we've heard from Rural and Satterfield, almost every single assistant coach. He talked about the standard in that second cut. It's about going out there and performing up to the standard. That is just echoing exactly what you hear from every other member of this coaching staff, and that's what it's about. It's about going out and executing. I understand. Quarterback, difficult position, but you heard him say it too. Pressure is part of the privilege of playing that. If you didn't have pressure, it wouldn't be worth playing in. So whenever you get those pressure-filled moments, go out and execute and go do your job. It's as simple as that.
Yep, and it'll be fascinating this spring to see quarterback growth, how much tutoring they get. They're going to put a lot of work into all 3, and who emerges moving forward, and can Nebraska find a guy to hold on to the football, make some plays, lean on a run game, and have that Tony White defense be as good or better as last year. Coach McBride's next. It's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you, it's Hour 2. It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark. We welcome in Mr. Blackshirt, a Monday with Charlie, Coach Charlie McBride. Coach, how many wings did you take down yesterday for the Super Bowl?
I'll tell you what. When they were guessing at the scores before the game, right? And I was listening to the TV, and so I said something like 23-13 or something like that. So I was closest, I think, because everybody was in their 30s and 40s. They thought it was going to be a big blowout or something, and nobody picked the 49ers.
I picked. I hedged on one show. I predicted Kansas City. That's what I'm going with. On another show, I picked San Francisco, so I'm half right. I know you picked the Niners, Elijah.
I picked the Niners in both shows because I have a spine.
You're a man of integrity.
That's right. Well, I actually didn't. I wasn't upset with either one of. If somebody else, either wanted one, I've been fine. I'd have made it through the night without committing suicide or jumping out any windows or anything.
But
I didn't. They don't bet around here very much, and I didn't get involved in too much of anything like that.
What did you think? I mean, you've seen a lot of quarterbacks in your time. The story was Brock Purdy, kind of an unknown, Mr. Irrelevant. He's really played good football, didn't play bad last night. But Patrick Mahomes just does it all, man. Does it with his arms, does it with his legs, does it with his demeanor.
Well, I think they do the right thing with Brock. I think they really count on their running game to be the major part of their offense, which they did. As you saw it, and they did a pretty good job of it, I thought. But I think in the long run, I think he did a good job. I know that he was under pressure when he threw that one. They kind of said, well, he should have done this or released it later. If he had released it later, he wouldn't have any teeth. And, so it was, he played well, I thought. I mean, for what, it was, you can't sit there and say, well, he lost the game for you. And I'm getting that, and like a lot of people would say. But I think he's a pretty good, I guess you'd call him a manager. That's probably.
He's a pretty good manager?
Well, he does a good job of not making a lot of errors. I know early he threw interceptions. So do they all. I mean, I think Manning, he might have led the league in interceptions his first or second year. And, so it's not easy. A guy that Dan Mariucci, not Mariucci, but a guy that I know does a radio show out in Phoenix. He has a clinic, and he had him in his clinic. He had both. He had Chubb in it too, I think, for a little while. Mm-hmm. But he does a good job. He's had a lot of guys playing in college and in the NFL, and was a quarterback at Kansas State. So, but I think when you see what he did do when he started running the football the last couple of games. I mean, and he kind of took off with it. He made something happen, and I don't know whether that's going to be part of his thing or not in the future.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Charlie, I want to get your thoughts on a moment that the television cameras caught in the first half. Travis Kelce goes over to Andy Reid and lets him know what he was feeling in that moment. Maybe a slight body check from Travis. You're a guy who's coached high-level football. You're a guy who's coached some emotional guys on the defensive side of the ball. What's your reaction to that moment? Is that a big deal, or is that something that's been blown up because of the moment being Super Bowl?
I think it was backwards. I think the thing actually happened. I think he was trying to get Andy to get upset and get after somebody or do something, and something like that. I don't think he was mad at something that he did. I think he just wanted them to say something to the team and chew their tails out, because he doesn't do that very often, but when he does, he means it, And so I think part of it was that, and I thought the only other thing could be is he was trying to steal his girlfriend.
Only logical explanation.
That's absolutely funny, Coach McBride. You stay the hell away from Taylor, right?
I see you looking up at that box, Coach.
She is mine, all mine.
You can have Ice Spice, though.
Yeah, you can have her friends. But that's so good.
Well, once you ask him a question, he's going to tell you the truth. They asked him after the game what they were saying when they were up there on the stage kissing each other. He said, "I just told her I loved her," and went on to that. So I mean, that's probably the whole story in few words.
Tell me a little bit about Andy Reid. Have you spent any time with him? Do you know much about Andy?
Well, Larry Quintero, who's a friend of mine at Arizona State, and he coached coached at Northern Arizona. And Andy Reid was one of his first assistant coaches. And he knew right then that this guy's really something. So it worked out for our, and Andy's always been an offensive guy. And and worked that way. And he's a heck of a play caller. And so, he's gotten himself, as years go on, he's seen it all. And so I think that, that he probably is going to stay another year or even maybe two, but that'll be the end of that tune. He's not going to stay there forever. Just he's getting to be like rode hard and put away wet, sort of.
Well, Coach, whenever you talk about that kind of nature he has on the sideline with Travis maybe trying to fire him up, is that something to coaching, being the calm, almost the voice of reason, the steadying force on the sideline? Because it really feels like Andy Reid's been that for most of his career. I had a buddy back in the day. His name was Jackson. He was a big Eagles fan. And Andy Reid's last year in Philly, the Eagles were having a rough year, and it always used to make Jackson mad that Coach Reid would be on the sideline with just a blank look on his face, no emotion. He used to say, well, this guy clearly doesn't care. But that's been Andy Reid's style through his entire career. Well, can you speak on the importance of having that on the sideline?
Well, he as you notice, he's one. He isn't even very loud when he yells. Right. I mean, he's just kind of, what do you think, Chiefs? But I guess he has blown his stack a few times. And I learned that way back when he was really straight with the players, and he really, doesn't do it. But when he does get upset, it makes them move their feet, and he doesn't do it a whole lot. So that's par with a lot of coaches. I mean, they just, and when they do go off, the players know that they're not fooling around, and that's the way he is. He's a serious person, but he's also kind of a jokester if you really want to know. I mean, he loves to make the game fun.
Coach Charlie McBride is with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And, Coach, what did you make of what the Niners did in the second half? We've talked about it a lot here in the first hour. Went away from McCaffrey in the second half, and then obviously they made the wrong decision by taking the ball first in overtime. What are your reactions to that?
I had a feeling he might have been dinged a little bit, and he might have had some problems physically. They didn't use him as much in the second half, and that you'll never know that. They won't ever say anything about that. But that guy is if he could stay healthy through the whole year, he'd be something else, because a lot of times he's playing hurt. And I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't in the second half play hurt a little bit. But he wasn't going to give up then. And, knowing his competitiveness, it's always, ever since he was in high school that I knew him, he was always a heck of a competitor in track and football and things like that. I mean, he was way ahead of other players in football.
Charlie McBride's with us here at Hail Varsity Radio, a Monday with Charlie. Coach, got to switch gears, and there was Tony White, Nebraska's defensive coordinator. His name was on the list for the UCLA job this late in the year. UCLA hired Deshaun Foster, their old running backs coach. Mm-hmm. But it's not the first time we've seen Tony White's name on a list, and Nebraska fans breathing a bit of a sigh of relief because you get another year with Coach White. And I know you've spent time with him and talked with him, but just speak to the UCLA situation. You guys played him a ton, always a lot of talent, but it never feels like they've kind of lived up to what they could be. And I know it's a tough spot from a standpoint. Well, it's first, you think UCLA, it's basketball, but all the things that are going on in LA, even in the sporting world, what do you think their prospects look like going into the Big Ten right now?
Well, as you know, that at UCLA, their basketball goes year-round because their school year is on quarters, I think. And what used to be the biggest problem is they may have played 4 or 5 games before they even started their school year. And that was hard because a lot of them spend a lot of time on the beach, you know. And when you're not going to school, and you're in between practices and things like that, they're a little harder to control, or, you know. And so, but if you catch them later in the year, you're in trouble because they're really a good football team. They've got some really good players, and they've got 30 million, almost maybe all close to 40 million people in the state. Mm-hmm. And so there's tons of players, and as you know, that goes through everything: volleyball, baseball, softball, all of it. You know, there's kids from California playing coast to coast out there, and I know even Alabama, Florida, and some of those schools have kids from California. So I don't know if Tony if a head job pops up, he's going to be forced to go. It's not, you know, you don't just pass up something like that. So it's you know, you don't know until somebody else takes the job. But the guy's been there 7 years, mm-hmm. and he knows the area, he knows the people, and it's an easy fit right now.
It's Charlie McBride with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, and I want to flip this around because we haven't talked since Chip Kelly departed UCLA. He's off to Ohio State, and for Foster getting named at UCLA, that's big. But you look at who Nebraska is chasing in the Big Ten, might be even bigger that Chip Kelly is going to be the Ohio State offensive coordinator. What's your reaction to that? Chip Kelly leaving sunny Los Angeles to head to Columbus, Ohio for a pay cut and a coordinator job instead of a head coaching job. Does that seem weird to you as well?
There's a lot of coaches that do that. A lot of them have gone to Alabama and been there for $25,000-$30,000 a year, and been an analyst or something like that, and then passed it on, and then the next year got a head job, and you know, or gone somewhere. And I think Nick has a little pull on you know, around. And I know Duffy Doherty used to have half the Michigan State staff was, you know, change over every year. I remember one kid got the Tulsa job. I can't remember his name, but I said, well, how the heck did that guy get the job? He said, I don't know. Duffy was in at lunchtime, and somebody called, and he yelled, who's in the office? And the guy said, I am. And he said, you want the Tulsa job? And he told him, and they took him. You know, but then, of course, that's in those days. But he was a hot coach where everybody went through. And Nick's a guy right now that, you know, got it. I think somebody told me the other day that Kevin Steele went, you know, back there, and then Tennessee offered him $1 million to come out of retirement, and I think Nick ended up paying $1.9 million for 1 year, and something like that, which is, you know, not a bad deal for a retirement.
Well, it feels like Chip just wants to call plays. Now, he left the head spot at a program at UCLA, but it sounded like, as some of the folks who cover the Bruins put it, just a bad marriage that went worse. So this change is something for UCLA, but hey, there's familiarity.
He had the same problem a little, you know, with the Philadelphia and those stacked up on top of each other. He probably said, I'm getting older. I've had enough of this. I just want to coach football, and you know, and so forth. And he's probably made a good buck and is not too worried about the prices right now, you know.
Coach, we'll check in with you next Monday. We'll get closer to spring football, and we'll talk some more ball with you next Monday. Thanks for a few minutes. Always love talking football with you.
Okay, guys. What are we going to do with no football now?
We'll make something up.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
I'll talk to you next week. Okay, bye.
That's pretty good. Quit talking to my girlfriend. That's what pissed off Travis with Andy Reid. Jay Moore, the Blackshirt Hour continues. Jay Moore with us next on Hail Varsity.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, it's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. The Blackshirt Hour continues. Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore with us at JMoore44. And can catch him on Big Red Wrap-Up as co-host. Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark in as well, Chris Schmidt. Bird, it started as a slow burn on the 4th of July for that artillery shell, and then all of a sudden a show happened with the Super Bowl. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was a great game. It was low scoring, two really good defenses. The 49ers defense showed up early in that game. The first couple games, the playoff games, they had very slow starts, so they got off to a really, really good start and really had the Chiefs, offense confused, upset. You have, Kelce bumping into Andy Reid in the sidelines, chewing him out. People aren't happy, and it could have been, McCaffrey had, obviously has that fumble in that first drive. Kind of a tale of, what could have been, and obviously with the miscues on special teams and the blocked extra point, and then the fumble, if you want to call it a fumble, the muff punt. I know I hit the guy's foot, and he didn't even know it. A pretty good job of being alert by McLeod to try to pick it up. You'd like to see him maybe fall in that scenario, but it's fun to see a game. It's a really, really good game where really two plays define the game, in my opinion. That was those two plays. It was the missed extra point in that field goal. So special teams, right? And those always come down to close games, just being almost the deciding factor if it's not going to be turnovers. If they make the extra point, the game's vastly different, knowing they have to go down and get 6 and not, can kind of take their time, and they know they have the best kicker, one of the best kickers in the league. He's been money all year. You have him in your back pocket. And then, with the fumbled punt, the muff punt, they score the next play. And they really hadn't gotten anything going all game. And all of a sudden, momentum flips, switches right there. But just a fantastic game. I mean, Purdy was good. Mahomes struggled a little bit, but then kind of got it going a little bit. The play call on 4th and 1, I love just that option to him to try to throw it out to the right. They take it away, he can run, and he does. He just made plays. Mahomes made plays when he needed to. He just finds a way. Year in and year out, the guy finds a way, whether he's hurt or not. He didn't have, this by far wasn't the best Chiefs team that they've had. But the defense was really, really good. And they found a way. And just a few too many mistakes by the 49ers and special teams. But you telling me you get a 5-quarter game in Vegas for the Super Bowl? I'm a little biased. I was biased towards the 49ers. I wanted them to win. We had some nice parlay bets going that we were looking to hit for. But it was a really good, really, really good Super Bowl. And I know there's a lot of frustrated anti-Chiefs fans out there, but I tell you what, they deserve this one. They went to the playoffs. They went to the gamut, and they came out at the end of it squeaky clean, right? And like Shawshank, And,
no kidding.
So it was a good game. I'm happy with. Obviously, wanted the 49ers to win, but just the entertainment value and the top. The really, really good football that was played was fun to watch.
So, real quick, part of the Super Bowl festivities, we're all kind of whining today about how we feel from overeating yesterday.
One thing to note with that slow first half, it was kind of the perfect time to do it because you can go up and grab some food, you can go grab a beer. If you're at a Super Bowl party, you can actually make some casual conversation, so it's not just focusing on the game.
It wasn't really anything different for Big Ten fans. So.
Yeah, no. Husker fans are all used to that kind of game. That was exciting.
But food-wise, apparently Junior made a pizza for you from Lazari's.
Apparently. We had a nice little spread. I had a former teammate of mine come over, and he has some kids that are the same age as mine, so let them play all the video games and do whatever, play basketball in the front driveway while we watched football. And yeah, we had Lazari's Pizza, we had chicken nachos from Bison Witches, and then we had wings from Slim Chickens, plus a nice assortment of beverages as well. So I think all our boxes were kind of checked for, Super Bowl food: pizza, nachos, wings. I mean, what else could a guy want?
That's fair. No, I mean, I'm trying.
Just an invite. That's all. But no, we've talked a lot about the smorgasbord we've all connoisseured and inhaled the last 24 hours. It was a good time.
It was. And Jay, somebody who was not having a good time for about 5 seconds in that game last night was Andy Reid when Travis Kelce came over to him. I do want to go there. You briefly brought it up. Connor and I were talking before the show. We both think it's a little bit overblown, the reaction to this moment. It's an emotional
moment. It was awful.
Was it, though?
Yeah.
I remember watching and saying, that's a guy that is frustrated. He's being underutilized in the offense. He wants to let his head coach know in a very high-pressure moment that he's upset with how this game is being called. And I think Travis Kelce, through the past decade of his career, has earned the right to voice his frustrations to Andy Reid like that.
I think if Kelce's with a less patient, tolerant coach as Big Red, Kelce's talent speaks for itself, but Big Andy's kind of helped nurture that talent. It's one thing to yell, and you can do that from a few feet away, Jay Bird, but not only to scream drunken what cover charge. I mean, that's what it looked like.
I mean, to me,
and then bump him like he's on the ice, and it's there's a puck to go after.
But to me, it's one thing if it's Pacheco doing that. It's another thing entirely if it's your Hall of Fame tight end that's already helped you win 2 Super Bowls.
He looked like a kid in toy aisle number 4.
My issue with it, this isn't the first blow-up Kelce's had in the sidelines.
Right.
I don't remember if it was in the playoffs.
Raiders
or
spiked his helmet.
Yep.
Yeah, he slammed his helmet down. Andy Reid chewed his tail off there too. So I think there's listen, Travis Kelce has all the respect in the world, one of the best to do it. Andy Reid, one of the best to do it, but I think there's got to be some respect. In my opinion, I know it's a passionate football game and you're frustrated, but I mean, come on, have a little self-control. And this is not the first time this has happened. And all that passion and energy that he showed there is why he's so good. But at the time, I mean, it was a little overboard for me, to be honest. It's
not used to seeing it. Not used to seeing it.
Have some self-control. And if it's one thing on the sideline, especially right there off the field, maybe pull them off to the side, bring them back to by where the equipment stuff, the extra helmets are, and be like, hey, get me the mother effing ball. And you do it right there, right? You don't need it, again, I've never been in that situation where I've been in the Super Bowl, heated, I get it. But to me, it's just, you got to stay a little more calm. It wasn't a great look by any means. Bumping your coach, but he about knocked him over. So I'm sure he's, a little embarrassed about this situation. I don't know if he's apologized or
he didn't post game on the podium. Yeah, on the media session. My fault. I mean, they're good, and I'm sure behind closed doors, Reid will just say, "Dude, appreciate you. Not again." They're fine.
Yeah,
because Reid can handle it. But
totally.
Well,
totally.
My thing
wasn't a great look at the
It's
time.
the relationship that they have.
And it's a different situation to me if Travis Kelce doesn't go and have the second half that he does, where you do get in the ball and the offense does look different. That's my take. Is I think my opinions may be swayed a little bit because, maybe Travis was right.
He wasn't wrong.
No, I mean, he wanted to be in blocking on that play because his backup missed the block. There's the strip. You get the football inside the 10 and you fumble going in trying to take a 7-3 lead.
Yeah, it's always an interesting discussion, right? A player-coach interaction on the sideline of the biggest game of the year by nothing's bigger than the Super Bowl. So he apologized. It is what it is. They get it. They get another championships and see if he comes back again. I mean, there's been talk of retirement, and he's been doing this for a long time. Does he want to come back to try to get a three-peat? I don't know.
They'll try for 3, I think. Of the 3 coaches you played for, Bo, Billy C., and Fearless Frankie, what coach of the 3 would you have feared a reaction from had Jay Moore lost it and went and hip-checked one of the 3?
Oh, my gosh. At Nebraska, probably Bo, easily. But I was thinking even like, NFL career. I mean, a guy, if someone did that to Mike Singletary.
I was going to say, Iron Mike.
You wouldn't live to tell the tale.
No way. I mean, he kicked Vernon Davis off the field in a game, in his first or second year of being the head coach. So, but definitely Bo. Yeah, Bo for sure would have. He has that southpaw. He might have caught one with that left hook.
Is it? I mean, is it the does he go with those Fargo eyes? Like, the wood chipper guy in Fargo looks a lot like Bo in the face.
He's looking right through you. Sure. Like, he is looking right through. I could just see it. That look. We all know that look.
Here comes Youngstown.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many pictures out there of him yelling at referees or Taylor Martinez or whatever it was. You don't want to make him mad. It don't take much either. To piss off Bo too. So you go bump him on the sidelines and yell at him, man. That would be that'd be a scene.
And Jay Moore with us on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, when you look at the second half, and Elijah and I were talking about this earlier, the play calling on San Francisco's side, they went away from the run a lot in that second half. What did you make of that? And if you're in that, head coaching position, what do you do differently in the next 2 quarters?
Well, it's hard because they leaned on McCaffrey big time. I mean, he was all that first drive and utilized him in the pass game as well. I know they come out in the second half, they try to throw it, and I think Romo was kind of questioning, and that's right. It's like you got to run the ball, and I know they have a backup running back too, but I kind of think they were like, let's give McCaffrey just a couple series off here. Let's try to utilize something else because we're going to have to lean on him hard late in the third quarter, in the fourth, and then in overtime. And they did. They got back to utilizing McCaffrey. I mean, that one drive, he was exhausted. He's like, I need one play off. He saw him raise one finger up, like, give me a play off. Because, I mean, they were toss, stretch, counters. They had him in motion. They tried to utilize him in the pass game. I mean, this game plan was centered around Christian McCaffrey. So I think part of that was they wanted to just maybe let's just throw a little wrinkle in there, give McCaffrey a little bit of a rest here because they know they're going to have to lean on him hard in the second half. But they got back to it. I don't think the game ends much differently if they just kept going McCaffrey left, McCaffrey right. I think it still just comes down to the fact that they missed an extra point and they muffed a punt. I mean, that's honestly what that game came down to, was those 2 special teams mistakes.
Well, Jay, I think maybe we disagree slightly here because I think Kyle Shanahan, he's had bad history in the second half of his Super Bowls. First, blowing the lead with the Falcons, and then blowing the lead against the Chiefs the first time around. He seems to have blown a lead again. I think the biggest discredit to Shanahan last night was taking the ball first in overtime. You had quotes from the 49ers postgame. Juszczyk said, I don't understand the strategy there. I mean, the Chiefs very much understand the strategy. They've been talking about that all year long, that, if the playoffs come around, we want the ball second in overtime because we're going to have 4 plays to pick up a first down, knowing the situation, knowing what we need to get. I feel like you can put something on Shanahan there from the third quarter play calling, which was rough, pulled it back together in the fourth quarter, but then choosing to take the ball first in overtime, I think is just one of the deadly sins that you can't commit as a coach. You have to know the situation, you have to know the strategy, and he chose wrong there. Yeah,
I mean, the play calling, it is what it is. It's, again, you're gonna have a stretch where things aren't going the way you want. I mean, they're a good football team on their side, right? And they're a really good defense. But as far as overtime, like that, the rules there caught me off guard too. I was like, wait a minute, what'd they say? Because I had completely forgotten. It sounds like even some of the 49ers players were not aware of regular season overtime versus playoff overtime. And yeah, knowing that, it's just like college. you always want to be on defense first, so you know what you're working with once you get the ball. Do I need a touchdown to tie, or a field goal to win or tie? Obviously, they get the field goal there, and now you know exactly what Mahomes and company has to go down and do. So, yeah, that was a mistake. I just don't know if communication was made or if Shanahan was confused, or I'm pretty sure that the referee, the head guy, came out and reminded everyone, like, hey, no matter what, everyone gets 2 possessions or a possession, even if 49ers score a touchdown first, because obviously in regular overtime rules, you score a touchdown first, game's over. You kick a field goal, the other team gets another chance. But even if the 49ers scored a field goal or a touchdown, the Chiefs were able to come back and counter that. I just don't know if that was overlooked or what. I don't know. I mean, even when they took the ball first and they kicked it, I kind of almost think like, man, maybe we go for it here. And because we just know Mahomes, last thing you want to do is give Mahomes a chance, right? So, yeah, that was a mistake. The play calling, you can dig down and I'm not as judgmental on that. But taking the ball first in overtime, yeah, that's. I think some communication error happened and someone was confused in the whole situation, which is unfortunate in the biggest game of the year.
Jay Moore's with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore at JMoore44 on Twitter. Co-host Big Red Wrap-Up. Jay, going to go to some Nebraska thoughts. You guys had your signing day special last week for Big Red Wrap-Up. A thought on Nebraska, and then to couple that, a chance to hear from Coach Glenn Thomas today, and sounded really ready for the moment, and why shouldn't he be? He's been in the NFL and he's been in college for a lot of his career, but touch on both those topics, starting with signing day.
Yeah, it was a nice, just kind of put a bow on everything, and that show is so difficult to do because there's like 36 guys you have to talk about, and it's a gap, right? You have them in December. You have the guys, whether they're early enrollees, transfers, and then you have the guys that sign in February, which is not a lot of them, but the transfers, right, that come in as well during that time frame. So it's a lot of guys you just kind of have to get familiar with and try to get words out on them and describe their play and in such a fast time. But I think, again, just a very well put together class. Obviously, Dylan Raiola leading that, Carter Nelson, Grant Bricks, Preston Tuamua, the lineman from Hawaii. I think he's a really, really good player. He's going to be a fantastic player. You get your quarterback. You get some really good O-line talent. You spring, wide receivers. They took care of that. Their obviously depth issue was a concern last year, and just with injuries, it was an issue. So they kind of checked that box, whether it was in the transfer portal or out of the signees. But you just look overall. I mean, talent from the state of Texas, talent from the state of Florida. Just speed, athletes, long. You can see exactly what Matt Rule wants, and he wants long, athletic guys, and those are great guys to have to make a football team out of. So I think very directional, very intentional on what Matt Rule wants to do. And let's be honest, I believe in his eye of talent and his judgment of talent, because you saw so many guys come in, especially on defense, play in year one. Cam Lenhart, Princewell. Riley Van Poppel plays as a true freshman. He didn't even come in he wasn't even here during the spring. So I think understanding the talent and kind of the programs are a part of it. Once they get on campus, the ability to develop them very, very quickly is very evident. And I think that can be used as a plus going forward in the recruiting realm, because it's like, listen, we're going to get you ready to play. We might not plan on you playing right away, but if you have to play, we're going to get you ready. And I think that was very, very evident last year. But as with Coach Glenn coming forward, I thought, his comments on, pressures, pressures being a true freshman quarterback, and the pressures being on Dylan Raiola. And it's just like pressure's a privilege. And I couldn't agree more. I think I said that, that same term a few weeks ago when I was chit-chatting with you guys. I think that's, you want that pressure. And you want those eyes, you want the attention. If you don't, then you're probably not going to be you're not going to be pretty good as a player. It just takes a special person to want that and appreciate that pressure and kind of know it and kind of flip the perspective. Because some people are like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine having all these eyes and all these people on me. It's like you gotta. It takes a different breed to handle that. And I think Dylan Raiola is going to be a guy to handle that. And but he knows. The nice thing is with Coach Satterfield, he was kind of spread thin last year, so it's hard to communicate with the quarterbacks, have the offensive system in place. Now the quarterbacks have a guy to go. And I know he's kind of co-OC, but Coach Glenn is a QB's coach. So there's only 3 of them on the roster currently. 2 of them are true freshmen, and the other one's Heinrich Harburg. So those 3 guys are going to get plenty of attention from Coach Glenn this spring.
Jay Bird will get caught up again next week. Thanks so much for giving us a few minutes, and always fun to talk some ball with you.
Yeah, you got it, boys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out on a Super Bowl Monday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark, Hail Varsity. Powered by Cornhead Lager. And be sure to get the podcast. Tell a friend, subscribe. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. Could also watch the show. Subscribe to our show and all the content, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. And that's press conferences, post games, lots of good coverage by Hurrdat Sports and Hail Varsity. Guys, pretty good 24 hours of sports with the Husker women. The good news on UCLA going a different direction if you're a Nebraska football fan. Glenn Thomas, his first statements today. And, Super Bowl 58, a thriller in overtime. We covered it all.
And we didn't even hit on Nebraska. Their big win over Michigan on Saturday afternoon, the Husker men.
Big wins over Michigan.
Yeah, it's not that I'm forgetting Nebraska. It's just that, they rolled a really bad team, and good for them.
Yeah, they
comparatively
did what was
to what has happened since then, I completely understand.
They did what was expected of them.
The best news.
I do think, though, that didn't you pick Michigan to cover on the show
probably,
on Friday?
But I also picked Nebraska for the outright win against Iowa.
That is true. So we're even.
That is true.
He said, I think I
both
said by
you picked
3.
The Niners.
You were also a spineless coward that both picked the Chiefs and the Niners. I don't want to let that go by the wayside.
I'm going to go with the average Joe take.
Of course you are.
On last Thursday's podcast. We're dropping a pod tonight that should be entertaining and insightful and above average. Let's hear from Glenn Thomas real quick. And he talks about black and white versus the gray area. That issue with young quarterbacks, with old quarterbacks. Cut 17 here from Glenn Thomas as he talked quarterback development today for Nebraska football.
Well, you just don't want to create as much gray, right? You start creating gray and all this, the complexity, in today's defense, shoot, even our guys, right? Tony does a great job on that side. There's so much complexity in the defense. You start creating gray, you create uncertainty as far as what the quarterback's thinking. They're not going to play fast or play confident. So the more that you can create black and white, finite decisions, the more confident they're going to play and the better they'll play.
Cut 15 here. This is great. Love this question. Hey, dude, what about the portal era? Does that affect how you coach quarterbacks?
No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, you got to, whether it be a Saturday to a Saturday, you got to make them the best they can possibly be when the ball snaps. So you can't look long term. You just got to build the best quarterback you can, if you will, that given weekend.
How many coaches live in fear of killing themselves to get that stud quarterback, only to worry about hanging on to said quarterback?
I don't think you can live sanely like that.
I don't think you can either, but I think a lot of coaches do. Because the problem is you think you got your next dude, and he can be out the door in a practice session, which is awful.
In a 3-hour window.
Yeah, you wonder why why is so-and-so, Carson asked me this. Junior said, Dad, why is Purdy had such a good year? I'm like, well, he had a good college career, but guess what? He stayed in college to work and get better. He stayed to develop. He didn't leave after not winning a job during the spring as a true freshman, and then kept on job hopping. There's going to be a better fit. What Russell Wilson did to go to Wisconsin was not wrong. You know what Chubba Purdy's done to go where he's landed, and I've lost track. Is it Nevada?
Believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope he plays and plays well. And we'll see where Nebraska goes with their quarterback situation. Back tomorrow at 4, Matt Verzel, Matt Schick, and Mitch Sherman at 4 tomorrow. Thanks.